Hello and welcome to my show Bottomline. As you all know, Parliament has concluded today without transacting any meaningful business. There are more protests outside the Parliament than any discussion inside the House. It has been happening for the past couple of years. There is too much of confrontation between the ruling party and the opposition. They come to the House not to debate, not to dialogue, but to destroy the whole institution of democracy, the Parliament of India. What exactly has happened to the Parliament? A government with a huge majority cannot get the opposition to stop shouting, but it gets its business done without a proper debate and dialogue. 11 bills were passed in this House during the session which was held for the namesake. Of these 9 bills were passed in the Lok Sabha without an MP or other than the minister just speaking on the bill. It has never happened. 7 bills received 5 minutes or less discussion in the Lok Sabha. Together, those 7 got just 28 minutes of Lok Sabha discussion. No debate, no argument, no scrutiny. And opposition with hundreds of FMPs cannot get the government to answer its question in the manner it demands. And the result is what? The government passes the bill, the opposition paralyzes the House, and Parliament loses in its entirety, in its spirit. Look at what happened in this session. The Monsoon Session ended with the Prime Minister and the Home Minister finally being seen in the Lok Sabha. They made a symbolic presence because the opposition did not allow them to come in the House. Amit Shah, Home Minister, had become the central figure in the confrontation after the opposition spent weeks demanding that he address the House over the police action during the student protest at Jantar Mantar last month. For much of the session, Shah was not in the Lok Sabha. He was in his chamber, but he never went to the Parliament. Then, almost at the end, he came to the House on the last day. The government said, we are ready for discussion. The opposition said, we don't want a lecture. We want answer from the Home Minister. Rahul, Gandhi as usual, and the opposition rejected the proposal format and insisted on the demand for the Home Minister to respond to the issue on their terms. When today, instead of political confrontation being settled through parliamentary debate, the House was adjourned sine die. That was the end of the session. That's the extraordinary irony here. The Prime Minister was there. The Home Minister was there in the House, in the building. The Leader of Opposition was there most of the time outside the building. And yet Parliament could not do what Parliament is supposed to do. Make them talk to each other. Outside, the spectacle became even more political. Government MPs and opposition staged competing protest carrying placards. The opposition protested the government and the government protested the opposition. First time our government leaders were protesting against the opposition. The Parliament complex became an extension of the political battlefield outside. And inside, adjournment after adjournment, shouting against each other again and again. It is not just about Amit Shah, it is not just about Rahul Gandhi, it is not even just about the BJP and the Congress. It raises a far more uncomfortable question. Has confrontation between the government and the opposition come so deep that the Parliament itself has ceased to be the place where that confrontation is resolved? Because if that is happening, we have a serious institutional problem. And here is the evidence. The decline did not begin with Narendra Modi. It goes back much further. 13th Lok Sabha from 1999 to 2004 sat for 356 days in 5 years. 14th sat for 322 days. The 15th sat for 357 days. The 16th Parliament sat for 331 days. The 17th, the last completed Lok Sabha, sat for just 274 days. That was by BJP government. That means number of sittings were declining. That was the fewest sittings of any full-term Lok Sabha during the past 3 decades. The average full-time Lok Sabha has historically been around 468 sittings days. Think about that. The Indian Parliament of the first decades routinely sat hundreds of days more than today's Lok Sabha. The 16th worked for only 16 and 15 hours, about 40% below the historical average. The 15th Parliament, even worse, it sat for 357 days but lost 803 hours to disruption. The 14th had lost only about 255 hours. So Parliament's problem is not new. but it has become more entrenched, deep-rooted, and there is something even more important than the number of sitting days. Or what does Parliament do with the time it has? This is where the story becomes disturbing. A bill is introduced. Does it go to the committee? Does the opposition get enough time to examine it? Do they discuss? The government says, we have the mandate to legislate, make laws. The opposition says, you are not allowing scrutiny. You are not allowing our leaders to speak. The government says, you are disrupting parliament. The opposition retorts, you are avoiding accountability. And then the house stops functioning. Who wins? Neither. The institution loses. Parliamentary democracy suffers. But there is another uncomfortable question. Is the government itself partly responsible for this deterioration? I believe the answer is yes and no. Not because the government is unequally or uniquely responsible for parliamentary disruption. It isn't. The BJP disrupted parliament repeatedly when it was in the opposition. The 15th Lok Sabha was paralyzed by the opposition protest over 2G, coal allocation, FDI and retail, and there are controversies. And the BJP leaders at that time admitted that disrupting the parliament is our right. That's a way of getting government to surrender. That both Sushma Swaraj and Arun Jaitley are on record. So the BJP cannot now claim that disruption is Congress invention. But governments have a special responsibility. They have the numbers. They control the legislative agenda. They have the Parliamentary Affairs Ministry. They have the ability to negotiate. And in this brings us lost political art, parliamentary management. Remember Pramod Mahajan, remember Kamal Nath, remember Ghulam Nabi Azad. They could be fierce political opponents outside parliament. But they understood that inside parliament, you had to talk to other side as well. They knew every party leader. They knew which opposition demand could be accepted or which can be rejected. They knew how to reach out to their adversary. They could pick up the telephone and negotiate. They understood the basic truth. A parliamentary affairs minister is not supposed to win arguments against the opposition. He is supposed to make parliament work. That distinctions matters. Today, the style is much more confrontationist, fight, rebuttals. Prahlad Joshi had experience, but he was also in a very attacking mood all the time. Kiran Rijiju from Northeast too is an experienced parliamentarian, no doubt. But Rijiju had become one of the government's most combative public voices against the opposition. He never talks of reconciliation. He repeatedly accuses the Congress of deliberately paralyzing the parliament. Sometimes that accusation is justified, but there is a danger when the parliamentary affairs minister becomes primarily another political combatant because the job requires something else. Negotiation, persuasion, trust, political intelligence. You need somebody who can talk to the opposition even when the Prime Minister cannot and doesn't want to or should not be doing it. But that brings us to Rahul Gandhi. The opposition also has a responsibility that it cannot escape. Rahul Gandhi has transferred the role of leader of the opposition into a much more aggressive challenge to Narendra Modi personally. That may be legitimate, but it's not parliamentary. A strong opposition is essential to democracy, but there is a difference between opposing the government and preventing parliament from functioning. If the government offers a debate and the opposition rejects it because it does not like the format, what happens? If question hour is lost, who loses? If bill is passed without opposition scrutiny, who is suffering? If parliament is adjourned, who loses? The government can return the next day. Rahul Gandhi can hold a press conference. Kiran Rijiju can hold another press conference, rebut him. The BJP can release another statement. Congress can release another statement, which is counter to the BJP. But the lost parliamentary hour never comes back. And this is why the cost of disruption cannot be measured simply in rupees. You will often hear the parliament cost taxpayers around 2.5 lakh every minute. That is widely quoted estimate, not an official audited cost of each minute. But the larger point is undeniable. Parliamentary time is public money. More importantly, it is public accountability. When the question hour disappears, MPs lose their opportunity to interrogate the minister. When debates disappear, citizens lose their opportunity to hear competing argument. When committees are bypassed, legislation loses an important layers of scrutiny. When bills are rushed through, Parliament can become a voting machine rather than a deliberative institution, giving more power to the executive. Misuse of power is most possible. And here is the paradox. The 17th Lok Sabha passed 220 bills through both houses, more than the 16th, more than the 15th. So it would be wrong to say Parliament simply stopped legislating. The problem is more subtle. Parliament may be getting better at passing laws and worse at examining them. That is much more serious. A government with a majority will win votes. That is how parliamentary democracy works. For winning a vote is not the same as winning an argument. A majority can pass a bill. It cannot substitute for scrutiny, debate, dialogue. And the opposition has the opposite problem. It can create noise, but noise is not scrutiny either. If Rahul believes a bill is dangerous, he should dismantle it clause by clause, argument by argument. If he believes that Amit Shah has questions to answer, he should put those questions on the floor of the House. If the government's explanation is inadequate, expose it. That is how an opposition wins. Not by preventing the government from speaking. Make the government speak and then destroy its argument if you can. That is parliamentary politics. And the government has an equally simple responsibility. If you believe you have nothing to hide, why fear prolonged scrutiny? Send the bill to committee, give the opposition some time, allow amendments, let experts testify, then vote. If you win legitimately. Because the strength of the majority is not that it can silence the opposition, the strength of the majority is that it can survive scrutiny as well. That is the distinction between majoritarian government and mature parliamentary democracy. And today, both sides appear to have forgotten it. The government increasingly treats opposition disruption as an obstacle to its mandate. The opposition increasingly treats disruption as proof that the government is afraid of scrutiny. Each side has built a political argument that reinforces the other, and Parliament becomes the casualty. So let us return to the extraordinary ending. Amit Shah finally comes to the House. The opposition is demanding that he answer. The government says that it's ready. Opposition says it is unacceptable. The Prime Minister appears on the final day. Government and opposition protest each other outside. The House is finally urgent. And the country is left with the same question it had before the session began. Is this what parliamentary democracy is supposed to look like? Is Parliament becoming a place where the government comes to legislate and the opposition comes to protest, but neither comes prepared to negotiate? Is the government using its majority too aggressively? Is the opposition using disruption too frequently? Have we lost the politicians who disagree fiercely but still talk privately? And perhaps the most important question, if Parliament cannot convert political confrontation to parliamentary debate, what exactly is Parliament for? Because the Constitution did not create Parliament as a backdrop for political theatre. It created Parliament to make the executive answerable, to scrutinize public money, to debate legislation, to represent competing interests, and to convert conflicts into law through argument rather than force. The trend today is the Parliament is no longer making laws. It is that lawmaking is becoming increasingly detached from deliberation. And once that happens, something fundamental changes. The government needs fewer negotiations. The opposition needs fewer arguments. Committees become less important. Debate becomes optional. Disruption becomes routine. That is not a healthy parliament. So for the bottom line tonight is not that Rahul Gandhi is responsible, nor is it that Narendra Modi is responsible, nor is it that Kiran Rijiju or Amit Shah is responsible. The problem is bigger than these individuals. India is losing a political culture that makes parliamentary democracy work. Governments need to learn again how to negotiate and debate, dialogue. Opposition need to learn again how to scrutinize without paralyzing the House. Ministers need to persuade, not merely attack. And parliaments need to become once again the place where the fiercest battles politicals are fought through argument and not to aggression. That's enough for today's bottom line. We'll meet again and discuss some other subject. Before going, I would like to request you to watch my channel, subscribe it, share it, give your comments, good or bad, be it bitter or sweet. I'll read them, but never mind it. Thank you.